Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. My name is Melinda Moulton, and I am your host, Melinda Moulton, and my guest today is Ryan McLaren. Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm great, Melinda. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being on my show. Well, let me tell my viewers a
Oh,
little bit
joy.
about you.
Yeah.
Ryan McLaren grew up in Vermont. He served in the AmeriCorps, worked on local school boards, and coached youth and high school sports. He worked in Governor Shumlin's administration and was an advisor to the Commissioner of Vermont's Department of Motor Vehicles. Ryan, for the past 10 years, has worked alongside Senator Peter Welch as a senior aide. Today, Ryan is running as a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Vermont. Now, Ryan is a graduate of Wesleyan College, where he majored in American Studies, played varsity football, and met his future wife, Adrienne Shea. Welcome to my show, Ryan.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Melinda. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, let's start at the very beginning. Share with us
Mhm.
a little bit about growing up in Vermont.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I grew up in Essex Junction. I live in Essex Junction now, so I live like half a mile from where my parents are, and um, it was ideal. It was a tremendous experience. My parents are from the Northeast Kingdom, so I spent my summers out in the woods and with my grandparents on Harvey's Lake in Barnet and in St. Johnsbury. And I was just back in St. Johnsbury. It was very nice. Got to talk to some folks that like went to high school with my parents, and I painted the porches at the St. Johnsbury Academy with one of my dad's friends when I was a teenager. So, it was ideal, and I grew up kind of like the Vermont way, where you roam around in the woods and people are taking care of you, and we had a community. I was involved in youth sports my whole life, and so had just a tremendous childhood, and I feel very lucky that I got to grow up in this place.
So what brought your parents to Vermont? Were they Vermonters?
They're Vermonters. So my mom
Wow.
is one of 13. Yeah, my grandparents are immigrants, French Canadian immigrants to Concord. They brought their family down. She was one of 13 siblings, and they had a farm in Concord, Vermont. But half of her siblings were born in Canada, spoke French at home. And then my dad's family, the McLarens, have been here since like 1760 something and have
Wow.
been in Barnet that whole time. So it was a little bit of both. But, they were born and raised here too. And then moved to Essex Junction to give us a better life. They knew there were some more opportunities for them. They didn't have the chance to go to college. So they moved here to give us a life that was a little bit better. And make sure we got to go to college, and they did.
Well, boy, Essex Junction. Wow, what an incredible city it's grown up to be. So Ryan, who do you believe was your greatest inspiration to follow the life of service that you've basically followed your entire life?
Oh man, my parents. You're gonna make me cry,
Oh,
uh, but I'm running because of my parents. Like they taught me everything I know about how to work hard and how to sacrifice for something you want and for your community. And it wasn't just about like me and my siblings. It was my parents worked their butts off for not a lot of money for a very long time. And my dad found a way to coach every sport we played and to with each all three of us, and then to be at every game, and my we all played college sports as well, me and my siblings, and my parents would be at every single one of my sister's like softball games.
wow.
They'd find a way to make it work, and that's to me that's genuine community service. Like coaching little league is such a tremendous service, and having um an adult that isn't your parents, and this is like be there to create a community around a sports team or a play or any of those things that kids do that are so important to learning and building their lives. Like that's what it's all about. And I just, as hard as it was for my parents to make ends meet, they made time to do it. And that is like, to me, that's where I what I believe is like
Where you
genuine
where you
service.
get what's it? Well, your grandfather was on the select board in Barnett, and he helped to relocate a Buddhist retreat. I loved reading about that.
Yeah, I know. And that, it's like
That's a
this
big
is
deal.
all of this is so Vermont where it is. My grandfather was a Republican. I was raised, my whole family's full of Republicans. He's the classic New England, so, like straight edge Republican man. But he also has this like Vermont libertarian streak, and he didn't care that they were Buddhists. Like he wanted good neighbors and to help build a community in Barnet um, and he knew that they would help do that, and so he helped find them a place, Carmicholing, to land, and it's still there today. It's
Is he
amazing.
still alive?
He's not. No, he passed
Okay.
a while back, and
Well, bless his
um,
heart. Bless his heart.
yeah.
Hey, now, in high school, you were an accomplished athlete.
Hmm.
You played football,
Yeah.
and
I
for
played
Essex
football.
High.
Yeah, football, hockey, lacrosse. Won a state championship in hockey, which I'm very proud of. And I am living in my high school lacrosse coach's house.
That's wild.
It's such a small world. Yeah, Dean
That's
Corkum is
wild.
an old friend and was my coach for a very long time. A great man, and
How cool
yeah, it
is
taught me so much. Like I believe team sports and those social activities that are so important to youth development. It's the foundation, whether it's sports or any other hobby, art that you do with other people, theater.
so
Yeah,
so
it teaches you how to
so
be in a community. It's
it does,
amazing.
and I can feel that from your energy. So at Wesleyan, talk to us a little about Professor Claire Potter, your thesis advisor, who made
Yeah,
you feel like you belong there. Tell me a little
yeah,
bit about Claire Potter.
I can. Yeah, Wesleyan was a different world for me growing up in little old Vermont. I felt like a woodchuck, frankly. Showing up at Wesleyan that's full of these cultured kids from prep schools and like New York City and all over the place. And like isn't full of a lot of low income students or first generation students. And so it took me a while. It struggled. Like I found a community through athletics, like I always did, and there's a remarkably diverse group of people in on like my football team that was probably maybe more diverse than the rest of the school at large. So it was great, but intellectually, I didn't necessarily feel like I belonged there, or I wasn't sure if I could keep up or what I wanted to do. And then I landed in Claire's class, and it was a class on queer history,
Wow.
which I took out of just pure curiosity, like wasn't sure. Why not? And I it was the first time that I felt like someone saw something in me
Oh,
there. And here's Claire Potter. Her I think Twitter handle remains tenured radical. She's like this radical lesbian who came of age in like the 70s and is this college professor. And she took an interest in this like jock type young man who was in her queer history class and probably stuck out like a sore thumb. And it was her genuine interest in me and grace that sort of gave me the first impression that no, I can hang here. Like I'm as smart as any of these people, whether or not I went to like the best prep school or the best private school in New York City. And I have something to offer. Like she told me I had something to offer her class, even though like I might have been different in
and,
that environment. And it
and
was really
Ryan,
important.
and Ryan, they covered you in an interview, in an article that they wrote for the school. I mean, you're highlighted. as one of the exceptional students that came out of Wesleyan in this remarkable article that I found on Google. So you now are considered a superstar at
I
Wesleyan, and
don't know
bravo
about,
on that.
there's a lot of superstars.
Well,
Yeah.
but no, you are. You're an inspiration to the students who have followed you, and so I want you
Yeah.
to know that. So now we're going to move on to St. Patrick's Day,
Hmm.
2017, and you and
Yeah.
a bunch of buddies went over to Mad River to ski. It was the first time skiing Mad River. Ski it if you can.
Yeah.
You went up the single chair, and you started to come down the chute. And tell my viewers what happened, my friend.
Well, I landed on a rock. It was St. Patrick's Day. We had a foot of snow that over no base and hadn't been there before, so didn't quite know where I was going. But yeah, I hit a rock that was buried in snow, and burst my L1 vertebrae, and have been paralyzed ever since. And the thing, I the thing I remember most is how painful it was. I remember the sound, I could hear myself like screaming, but it doesn't, it was like it's sort of like it was an out of body experience. Um, but then the other thing I remember most is the people that showed up. I was there with my brother, and then, these ski patrollers who were there and figured out how to get me down the mountain, and cared for me. It was like a really genuine act of like care and love that they performed in that moment. And I'm like so grateful for what they did. And it taught me a lot, both that experience and afterwards. But, one of the ski patrollers could tell I was in a lot of pain, and we were waiting for the ambulance. And they asked me if they wanted a paramedic to come and meet us halfway so I could get some medication for the pain on the ride. And I remember John, one of the many Johns working ski patrol that day, just grabbing me by the face and saying, like, yes, like you do. Like making the decision for me because I needed the help. And it was the start of a new life for me, a new birthday, in a lot of ways. And um yeah, it's quite a special place to me.
So each year you return to Mad River Glen for your Alive Day event.
Yeah.
And I know, and Grace Potter this year was there. She came out, gave you, so many hugs and love and kisses and
Serenaded me. It was
adoration, and she
surreal.
serenaded you and about,
Yeah.
800 other people that were packed
Yeah.
into the base box. And you raised a lot of money, which you do every year for
Yes.
important nonprofits like the High Fives Foundation that you worked with after your accident. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do go back every year to say thank you to the ski patrollers, to the place that made my life possible, because I'm just so grateful for what I have. Um, and the people that have shown up for me to like allow me to continue to live my life fully as a paraplegic. And that has been these tremendous organizations like the High Fives Foundation, the Kelly Brush Foundation, Vermont Adaptive, Mad River Ski Patrol that was there that very day. And we've started working with the Pennywise Foundation and then Grace's Foundation, the Grand Point Foundation, that,
Yes.
you know, what they all have in common is they are born in Vermont, and they have this very Vermont ethic of like building community from the ground up and the power of it. And how important it is, to like fulfillment and giving people the sense of freedom and liberty to like live their lives fully. And so I just feel so indebted to the people and the organizations that have done this for me. So it's the least I could do. That event was so special. I can't think of something that communicated what these organizations and what this place can do better, where Grace Potter, a like international rock star, is playing the bass box at Mad River
Right, I
to
know.
raise money. So we raised $20,000 for these organizations.
Amazing.
I'm excited to go up and give some money to the ski patrol soon. And I'm really next year will be 10 years, so already trying to plan what we can do to make it bigger, better, and keep raising
Well,
money for the
put
people
me
that
on your planning committee because I love to
Okay.
throw parties.
Yeah, yes.
I do. So now, one of the other amazing things that you did is you helped implement a 2013 law, excuse me, that allowed non-U.S. citizens to obtain a Vermont driver's license.
Yeah.
Briefly tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it feels almost quaint now, 12 years, 11 years later, but it was a really hard political fight to both pass the law that would allow us to do it and then implement the law. But what Governor Shumlin knew back then, and what Rob Ide knew, the Republican senator who was the commissioner at the time at the DMV, who I worked for, was that immigrants are essential members of our community. They are neighbors, first and foremost. And none of our neighbors should go to jail or, God forbid, be sent out of this country because they
Oh,
need to go to a doctor's office or drive to the grocery store. Like, that is not a crime that someone should endure immigration detention or procedures for. And so we had to do it, and we had to do it in ways that both challenged antiquated systems of thinking around who these people were and what they did. Like, our economy is driven by immigrants, very much so today, just as much as it was back then. And it was true in farm labor, it was true in construction, it was true at ski resorts. That is essential. And we had a lot of institutional resistance at the same time where folks within the department or state government weren't psyched about the idea because it was new. And I'm proud today that even, organizations like the Vermont Afghan Alliance, that started as a driving program to train new migrants, folks who came over from Afghanistan on how to drive so they could get a job. And that would never have been possible had we not, Governor Shumlin and didn't have the foresight to pass the law, and Rob and I weren't able to implement it back then.
bless your heart on that one. So now, one of the most important issues that you've worked on since you've been a senior aide for Senator Peter Welch, and certainly do it during his time when he was a representative, was supporting veterans who were exposed to
Mhm.
toxic burn pits.
Uh-huh.
Talk to us about your work in Congress and the outcome of
I
that.
feel like you're just trying to make me cry because I'm going to
I
cry.
well, I love the fact that you cry. I mean,
I
there's nothing is more of a turn on for me than a man that cries, quite frankly.
but I mean, it's personal for me. My uncle, Mike Cram, he was a police officer in Winooski and at the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department forever, and he was deployed twice to Iraq and Afghanistan. And when I was in the hospital after my injury, he was starting cancer treatment um, for pancreatic and prostate cancer
Hmm.
at an extremely young age. He wasn't even 50 yet. And, it was aggressive, abnormal, and directly related to his service overseas around burn pits. And so, I got to work closely with my aunt who's still here and I love deeply. And she was pulling together a group of wives and service members who were dealing with the same issue. Wes Black, a firefighter in White River Junction, died with two kids under 50 from an aggressive severe cancer from his service overseas. Mike Heston, who was high up in the National Guard, passed away. So these families came together organically and started calling our office and called me in Peter's office and said, "We have to start talking about this." And so it started with a meeting with Peter and family members, folks who were going through treatment, and or widows, and it grew from there. And this was happening nationally, so it was bubbling up all at the same time because these service members were dealing with the same problems. And finally, as a result of work that Peter did, we were able to pass a burn pit registry to start tracking who was near these things, and add a presumptive determination of cause for burn pits, not for everyone, We still have a lot of work to do, but to make sure that if you were serving overseas in some of these toxic places, that the VA would cover the healthcare you need if God forbid you got sick. And so, it's some of the work I'm proudest of because it's the most personal. And
Right.
it came
Right.
about like I mean, Mike's not here anymore. Mike
Sorry.
died a few
Sorry.
years after that. Um, and what is, but his legacy lives on in this effort to make sure that people that are protecting us are sent overseas on behalf of the United States to keep us safe.
Thank you.
Don't die because of it.
Thank you for that, Ryan. So now you just completed the Boston Marathon as a hand
Yes.
cyclist, and I and,
I'll
and, and I believe you
try not
came
to
in.
cry about this.
I believe you came in eighth.
Came in eighth this year.
Okay.
Yep.
So where do you find the resilience and strength to do all that you do? You are one of the most committed, focused, and strong-spirited humans I know. Where does this come from? And talk to us about the marathon you just completed a few weeks ago, coming in eighth.
Uh, it's there's two lines I use all the time. Like if you ever seen the movie Finding Dory, Finding Nemo, it's like just
Yes.
keep swimming.
Yes.
And Teddy Roosevelt has this line where he says, black care rarely sits behind a rider whose pace is fast enough. I just got to keep moving. Like that's where I get my energy and hope. And so, um, yeah, action's contagious, I think. And so much of what I'm trying to do, both in my work and in my personal life, is um find freedom in like what and how I feel. Like in my heart, and in my mind, there's a sense of like peace and freedom that I find in helping people, like being in community with other people and trying to make things better. Um and then that's why I've been an athlete my whole life and I've always found it in movement. So like getting back to skiing after my accident, like what it was hard because I didn't know if I'd be good at it. I didn't know what it would be like. And then the first time I was riding my mono ski on a mountain and not thinking, finding that place of that getting in the zone, as they say,
Hmm.
and just like flowing. It's exactly the same. It doesn't matter how you do it. That feeling is the same. And so I find that in athletics, I find that in service, and I find that at the Boston Marathon. Like it's the most fun experience you could ever have where there's hundreds of thousands of people just saying you can do it. Like you're great. It's so heartwarming and positive. It's a sense of like it reinforces my, hope in humanity where it's like, oh no, we're good and people can do,
Well,
we can do things. Yeah.
you're such an inspiration. So you say that you embrace pragmatism over ideology, and you are running for lieutenant governor. And I do want
Yeah.
my viewers to know that Ryan is a candidate for lieutenant governor. You have said that you embrace pragmatism over ideology. Briefly explain to us what you mean by that.
I mean, what matters most to me is that we make an impact in people's lives. And our ideologies, our preconceived notions, our biases can often get in the way of like delivering outcomes. Like we've decided the right answer without before even trying. And so I am concerned generally about our politics today being hyper fixated on ideological fights and without a sense of urgency around action. And so in some ways it becomes when we focus on ideologies, politics becomes an intellectual exercise where we're arguing with each other about the best ways to do things, and everyone else living in the real world kind of gets left behind in that. And I think about my parents all the time. They didn't have they weren't deeply engaged in politics when I was growing up because they didn't have time for it. They were like working their butts off trying to make ends meet. And, we're periodic voters every now and then, maybe presidential elections, whatever, when it felt like it could make a difference. But politics was acting on them the whole time, right? Like the fact that we grew up, had Dr. Dinosaur is a function of politics. And so, like, making sure our political conversation is hyper focused on action and on delivering results. And so, is the most important thing for me.
Well, that
Because,
explains it.
yeah,
That,
yeah,
thank you so much. Well, today I'm going to be testifying for universal primary care
yeah,
today
right,
down at the
right.
State House. I mean, we all have to stand up and do this stuff. Now, as
Yes,
lieutenant governor, which is what you're running for,
yeah,
I mean, there isn't a whole lot, quite frankly, that's expected in that role, or maybe there is. So, talk to
yeah,
us a little bit about the responsibilities, and then I want you to talk a little bit about what you think is the one of the major issues that's facing Vermont right now. So talk to us about the lieutenant governorship, what you're going
yeah,
to bring to that role,
right.
and what you think one of the biggest issues is that we're facing in our state right now.
Yeah. Well, the lieutenant governor's office, as you point out, is not one where I get to vote on anything or I get to write bills necessarily. But there's two jobs. One is to have a heartbeat in case something happens to the governor and to be ready to step in on day one. I'm the most experienced person at every level of government, federal, state, local, in the race, period. Actually getting things done, not just being a politician, because I'm not a politician. I'm just someone who's here to do the work. And I have the most experience in doing the work than I think anyone else in the race. So if that's important to you, that's like I'm your guy. But what excites me about this job is it is an opportunity to be outside of Montpelier, to be talking to Vermonters and bringing their story into the legislative process. I have done that for the last 10 years of my life here in Vermont, working for Peter, for Senator Welch, going out into communities and translating what's happening on the ground so people see their lives reflected in the work that Peter does in DC. And that's what excites me, like not is being out and building trust in our political system and also building a sense of urgency around some of the crises people are facing in their day-to-day lives. And the issues that matter most to me are top line is how expensive it is to live in Vermont these days. It is the third most expensive state in the country to raise a kid. It costs almost $40,000 a year to raise a kid in Vermont. And so we see stories every day, like in 7 days this week, the birth rate's declining. Our school enrollment is dropping precipitously. Immigration has declined. And so our demographics are going to get much, much worse over time because young people can't afford to live here and working families can't afford to make a life here. And that comes down to housing and healthcare. That's 70% of what people are spending their money on practically. And it doesn't leave a lot left over for childcare, which is more than a mortgage for a lot of people. It was when our two girls were in childcare, it was more than our mortgage. And
Well, they say property taxes are going to go up 3.25% again this year. And my property taxes rose by $4,000 this year. $4,000
that
on top of
is
what we were paying. I mean, and Rick and I are on and
unbelievable.
we're on a fixed income, and it was
Right.
so it's really
Yes.
been hard. I mean, we want to hold on to our house and our little meadow and leave something for our grandchildren, but it gets
Right.
really harder and harder. So that's another issue. Healthcare, certainly. I also want to talk to you about real openness and generosity in our politics. How
Mm,
would you define our current national state of affairs, which seems to lack generosity? And how will you, as Lieutenant Governor, protect Vermont from the attacks and destruction of our constitutional ideals that's going on right now in the current administration?
yeah, that's a really great question, Melinda. I so much of what's motivating me right now to run for lieutenant governor is how toxic our political discourse nationally has become and how unproductive it feels. And so I believe in this moment of genuine threat to our democracy, to our state, to our neighbors who are being ripped out of their homes.
Yeah.
Our best response is to lock arms, is to turn inward and to lock arms and to make ourselves stronger. Like bullies pick on the weak because they feel like they're an easy target. And so the way we fight back is to make Vermont the strongest state humanly possible.
Here,
And
here.
and so here we are. We're doing it. We're speaking up like loud and clear. But we also have to do the work here at home to make sure people aren't getting priced out of their homes, to make sure that working families can make ends meet and build a life for their kids. So my girls can grow up in Vermont and raise their families here without having to go and become a millionaire somewhere else to afford to do it. And that's really hard work, but we have to treat it with the same urgency we are treating the threat from Donald Trump, because they're both
Mhm.
as dangerous to the future of our state as the other. And so we have to do both at the same time. I've spent my entire time in Peter Welch's office practically fighting back against the Trump administration. I've seen the ways, large and small, and there are a lot of ways that no one ever hears about, you don't ever read about, where they're threatening really important things for Vermonters every single day. And so, one, I know how to push back and I know how to find answers and work around it. But I also am committed to making sure people like my parents, who are in your same situation, property taxes rising all the time, trying to retire, trying to figure out how to stay in their home, can actually do it. And we can't do that by just focusing on Donald Trump. Uh, so, in a lot of ways, what we've lost in our politics, and what we've lost in society, and the real danger of Donald Trump, is we've lost connection. Like it's become impersonal and inhuman. And my version of politics, what I love about the work I've been able to do, and what I've learned from Peter, is that this is a human business. It's like you have to do it in real life, not on screens. Like it's like out in the world. And our strength is there when we're together in person in a community. And so, and that requires a lot of grace and a lot of curiosity, because it's hard to hate people up close. It's a lot harder to have some of these conversations you see online when you're sitting in the same room with someone. And so
Well,
that's the politics I want to practice.
well, Ryan, I got to tell you, I mean, I read a lot of the stuff that people write. I mean, I on Peter's social media, and I'm absolutely amazed at the horror and the hatred and the meanness. I mean, I don't know how y'all do it, but listen, I got to tell you, I am so inspired by you and
Oh, thank
moved by
you.
you, and I've known you a long time, and I just think you'd make an extraordinary lieutenant governor, and
Thank you.
I really do wish you well.
Thanks.
You're a
Well,
remarkable.
Melinda, can I just say this? I'm inspired by you. I mean, like Main Street Landing and what is you helped build there is such a treasure. And the alternative would have been so much worse, was so much worse. It was like it all. And so, if we're talking about what's possible in a world of like corporate power, late stage capitalism and greed, like you did it. You did it. That's an example for us all to learn from. And so what I am trying to do in anything I can is to celebrate success and not lose hope. Like it would be easy to imagine a world where what you were able to build there isn't possible today. But it can be possible if we make sure it is. And so it's just like doing the work and staying in the fight and not giving up on what we can do here in little old Vermont, regardless of what's happening around us. Like, if my injury taught me anything, it's that we can build the life of our dreams regardless of the circumstances if we work hard and we have help from our neighbors. And Vermont is a place where that's still possible. And so, look, we just got to look around, not lose track of it, and then commit to doing the work. So I'm excited to do the work with you still,
Oh,
and
you
it's
bet.
really special. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. Well, Ryan McLaren, thank you so much for being on my show. I really honor you, and I thank you for being my friend. And
Oh
to
my
my
gosh,
viewers, I want
my
to thank you
pleasure.
for joining us today, and I will see you shortly. You have a beautiful day and enjoy the coming month of May. Tomorrow is the first day of May,
Oh,
and you all enjoy
springtime.
it. Bless your hearts. Enjoy the daffodils. Goodbye.